Thank you so much. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We shall now go on to our next speaker. This lady has made us popular, famous globally. Dr. V.R. Lalitambika. She's played a key role in building India's rocket program and led the country's human spaceflight program. She has been an amazing woman leader and she has set an example for all of us. And ISRO, where she's from, ISRO has set us on the global platform with the recent and the earlier ISRO missions, Mangalyaan, Chandrayaan, lot of successful missions and projects which have made all of us so proud of ISRO that we are now in a place where the global world is standing up and taking notice of all the talent in our country. May I request you to please put your hands together for Dr. V.R. Lalitambika, Distinguished Scientist, Director, Directorate of Human Space Program at ISRO Quarters. Ma'am, may I request you to...
Good afternoon to you all. I consider it a very great privilege to be here today morning, and I really enjoyed the session with our Honorable Vice President of India. It was really awesome, and the way this whole session was conducted, I found very unconventional and really touching the heart. And it was really great to see the first ever Braille book on project management being unveiled. So I was really very happy to see the kind of catchword of this conference, and it is resonating really well with what we in the space program are doing. So I have been working in the Indian space program for more than 30 years, even though we do not have... Yes. Oh, thank you very much. And it has been a wonderful journey. And I thought, even though we are not really designated as project managers, there are, of course, project management skills and program management skills are inherent to the program. So I sat and thought about what we have been actually doing, and based on that I have brought a few slides which I would like to share with you. So I thought that I would just share with you what the organizational culture can do to nurture a drive to excel in individuals, in teams, and collectively build up an excellent organization. So I'll just go to the... Before I actually move on to the management aspects, I thought I should give 2 or 3 slides introducing the space program. As we all know, humanity has touched the extreme ends of the solar system and has even gone beyond. The 2 Voyagers are in interstellar space now. And this is the unmanned route. And humanity is also trying to move beyond the vicinity of the Earth. We have gone up to Moon. Beyond that, striving to go to Mars. So this is what the background of the space exploration is now. And we know that in our domain, we are striving to excel in the space transportation system, trying to develop techniques by which you can have aircraft-like access to space, and which will further lead to exploration of our neighboring planets. At a much later date, it will be leading to in situ resource utilization, finally establishing a sustained habitat somewhere else other than Mother Earth. So there are many technical challenges which we face along the way, but I am not going to dwell upon them. First of all, I think time is a constraint. I understand that overall schedule also has been modified. So I'll just skip this slide. But these are the challenges, technical challenges, which we have been trying to overcome. They are twofold. One is the engineering challenges and the other is the human challenges. In fact, so far the human challenges have been new to us in ISRO, but now we are also grappling with it, especially the effect of microgravity, how it's going to affect the space radiation, how to support life in space, how to maintain physical fitness, how to have a comfortable habitat, all those things. They are the issues which we are grappling right now. So now coming to a general features of a space program. The first and foremost feature is that it is time bound. Time bound not just in the conventional sense, in the sense that you have to deliver products when the customer demands and when we have committed. It's not just that. It is that, suppose you are trying to go to another planet, you have to launch at a particular date and a particular time so that you can go and rendezvous with the other planet with the minimum fuel and with the minimum time. And that opportunity once lost, it comes back after, sometimes it comes back after many years. So in that sense, we have to make sure that we deliver everything on time. And this time bound also has another dimension in our parlance. When we are having a very, very tight launch window, on a particular day we can launch maybe within an hour. If there is any hold which leads in that lead up, then you lose that opportunity. Entire fuel would be filled and you cannot launch on that day. Then it is a big cycle. So how do you avoid that? It comes to the quality and reliability. We need to maintain extremely high quality and reliability of our systems, and this has to start from scratch, from the selection of the materials, through the manufacturing process, through the testing, through the implementation and the flight and beyond. So that is the very great importance which quality and reliability has on the space program. And there is a great emphasis on teamwork. As we all know, this is a very, very complex system. People jokingly say something is not rocket science, which implies that rocket science is very complex. It really is so, because you have so many subsystems and none of it can work by itself. If you take, for example, a rocket will have a structure, it has a propulsion system, it has aerodynamics, it works within the atmosphere, it has all the navigation, guidance, control, avionics. All these systems have to work as one single whole, on top of which you are mounting a satellite, which also has all these systems. You have to integrate everything, design, realize, test, integrate, launch, for which you need special infrastructure, then track and gather data, use the data. So it's unless everybody works together as a one single team and geographically separated all over India, in our case, this is so for any space program, we all have to really have a seamless teamwork. The next part is optimization, because as we all know, we are talking about sending something up, and the payload is usually a very small fraction of, I think I'll just have to go back and show that alone. See, if you are seeing this this pie chart, you can see that the propellant accounts for a very large chunk of the mass. Then you have the structure, and what is the payload? The payload is a very tiny fraction of the whole thing. So the mass is very important, mass which you carry to orbit, because the price per kg of payload depends on the total mass which you are sending. You are always trying to bring down this particular cost. And so it is really schedule critical, and it is mission critical, and it is also safety critical, especially when we are talking about the human space mission. And in this, schedule is something which is very obvious. With respect to mission criticality, I would just like to share, because our experiences are slightly different from the other community. Suppose you want to launch a satellite for doing in a polar sun synchronous orbit. The objective is to map a place at the same illumination condition day after day. That is possible only if you maintain a particular orbital inclination, and for each orbit there is a particular inclination. Unless you launch it precisely there is absolutely no use in doing it. So that is the mission criticality. You have to meet everything exactly. So the challenges which we ourselves have faced, because I was involved in all the launch vehicle programs right from the ASLV, the second half onwards. When we want to do something new, we don't have any ready-made procedures available anywhere. But there will be reports, but we do not know how much of it has actually been implemented, and we need to make our own changes in that. So This is something which research is a very, very important part of what we do. And in all critical areas, we have had to do our own development and indigenize, because as you all know, there have been instances where embargo has been clamped on all our products. We were not supposed to import any critical item from outside. It has acted as a spur for our innovation. And we have developed many products because of that, developed from scratch. So there is, of course, when something goes wrong and you know there's a deadline to meet, which is an inviolable deadline, then you have to, and you're working under pressure. So continuous work, round the clock work till that is solved. There's no problem, there's no question of any shift, because the same designer has to work till his problem is solved. So such things are there, and we have really enjoyed the journey. So it's research and project pressures. They go hand in hand in our domain. So this is a single slide which I have. I'm very proud to have present this slide before you. We all know that Dr. Vikram Sarabhai had a vision for the Indian space program, that is to provide the space-based technologies for the benefit of the common man. And over so many years, this vision has been translated to reality. And it has not come overnight. It has been built up block by block. So you can see, yeah. Now, you can see that in 1963, incidentally, I was born in 1962, so I have probably grown with the program. So this is the very first launch of the, and it was an imported rocket at that time. We started building our own small rockets. I think all of you would have seen the iconic photograph of a rocket part being carried on a cycle. So we started from there, and slowly we built up our space transportation capability. Similarly, we had the SITE, which was really the largest sociological experiment in the world. The educational programs were beamed to select villages, and it was such a success that the space program got a real impetus, and now we are having space applications which are in diverse domains. You can see anything, drought, earthquake, tsunami, cyclone, landslide, everything can be predicted and human lives can be saved. This is in addition to all the other applications of the resource management. So like that, we have built up our capability through a vision which has been consistently translated to reality, and that's what we are continuing now also. So now I am moving from our narration of what we have been doing to probably how we are doing it. So I just have a few slides which are crystallizing my views on how this has happened and how it should happen. So the first and foremost thing is that is the clear organizational vision, and the vision has to be bought in by all the people who are participating. So all the groups which are, and the teams and the individuals, they all have to align themselves to that vision. And it is very, very important to see the big picture. And seeing the big picture, you have to like the big picture. It has to be something with which you want to be associated with all your working life, if possible. So it is that very, very famous anecdote of the two workers who were working with bricks. I'm sure everybody would have heard. When asked, one person said, "Oh, I am building a wall." The second person said, "I am constructing a church." So it makes that kind of difference. It makes in the attitude to what you are looking for. So once you see the big picture, wherever gaps are there in the existing body of knowledge can be seen. Opportunities for our own organization to step into that and then expand ourselves can be seen. And of course, if it is a wonderful big picture, it can satisfy aspirational goals, because it gives such a wonderful feeling to be serving the nation. Or I've put a few examples, finding meaning in life, because ultimately that's what one is really living for. And one benefit to the organization is that it leads to a very high level of employee satisfaction and a very low attrition rate, which is one of the problems which are encountered in many places. So a second thing which I feel is very important is that the leadership has to be extremely strong, and in all the successful organizations you will see that there are strong leaders. We have seen many cases where decision making under extreme pressure, when the whole nation is watching, when the head of the nation is sitting there and watching. So under such conditions and something goes wrong, whether to proceed or whether to stop, whether to go back and come, all those are decisions which have to be taken, and they have to be taken based on sound engineering judgment. You cannot keep on waiting till all the data comes in. So with available data, a sound engineering judgment often has to be made. And for that also it is necessary to know when you have sufficient data to make an informed decision. And there is one thing which we have faced time and again, that the leader should take responsibility for the decisions and stand by the team. I'm sure you would have heard our honorable late President Dr. Abdul Kalam mentioning an anecdote. When he was the project director of the SLV project, there was a failure. And his superior, who was Professor Dhawan, he said, yeah, I'll take care of it. The next mission was a success. Professor Dhawan did not appear in the picture at all. He asked Dr. Kalam, you go and conduct the press conference. He keeps repeating it. Because, so that if you know that your leader is going to always stand by you, and that message percolates all round. And what do you get? You get very loyal team members, and everybody, if you are allowed to speak, all will be assertive, focused and professional individuals who are all potential leaders in the future. So I was also thinking, what are the other things which would be very important? Of course, it is very important to have the short-term plan, a medium-term plan and a long-term plan, but at the same time we all know disruptive technology keeps popping in. So you must have the flexibility to suddenly turn around and change your plan also. This is something we have been practicing all along. And another thing is to have a very strong review structure. When I say strong review structure, it has to be transparent, it has to be very, very meticulous, and it has to be democratic. When we say democratic, decisions cannot always be taken by consensus. It is very difficult to take decisions by consensus, but each and every member of the team, from the junior most to the senior most, should have a voice and should be able to tell any concerns which he might be having. And that concern has to be heard and weighed, and then that will somehow flow into the decision in some way. This is something which is extremely important, and that's the kind of democracy which I was mentioning. Because the other thing is well known. Now the third point which is relevant for an organization which has a long-term vision is to have a defined succession planning. Because if you have a vision and a long-term goal, obviously the people will keep changing, but you should be progressing in the same direction, for which you should have the second tier, third tier, fourth tier of leaders, all nurtured, identified, nurtured and brought up. So this is something which we have a very unique thing. I've put, this is a kind of a guru-shishya relationship which endures. Even after people retire and go, their technical expertise and their capabilities are with them. So they are utilized in some fashion, through reviews, through meetings, they all come in. And so that is something which I find it is really very heartwarming also. So again, there are a lot of factors which make you feel good about your organization and about yourself, and which in turn provides an environment by which you can give your best. So I find that this the team spirit is something extremely important when we all feel that we are belonging to the same team. And everybody will be self-motivated, and each will have a defined work assigned and operational freedom. and everybody can give feedback. This is again a part of the democratic arrangement. And no borders between teams. In the sense that we say that anything shared will give you back manyfold. So no knowledge should be kept within a team, entirely within a team. It should be disseminated, and a lot of cross-pollination of ideas will bring up something new into the project, which is something we practice day in and day out. And a pride in the organizational culture. So this is something which makes you feel very good about the kind of work which you are doing and the organization in which you are working. And I'm sure that my pride is coming through. Sorry to, that's it. The last point I'm saying, because I am a woman, I find that one of the best working environments for women come when there is gender neutrality. Nobody should be bothered about whether the person who is there is a man or a woman. It should be totally gender neutral so that you can forget about your gender and continue your work. It should not influence any of the interactions among people. That said, there should be a safe environment for the women at the workplace because we know the ground realities. And that has to be ensured. Why I'm saying is that I have come across places where women have difficulties, especially when you have work which extends long, maybe 2 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock of night, you have to go home. Some arrangement should be made so that their safety is ensured. That is very, very important. And the last thing is, any person will have family responsibilities as well as work responsibilities. When you are in a position of responsibility as a project manager, then there will be many issues to solve on the work front. But if you have a team and a system in place, if you have a crisis on the home front, at that time you should be able to manage that as well. That is the prioritization and balancing of family responsibilities and work. It is a reality that the work-life balance, which is much spoken about, it is very, very difficult to achieve. You may not, your work may be your life for most of the time. But when the family demands it, you should be able to prioritize that. This is something I find very important. So I have this last slide on which I'll dwell a little bit. I have another 8 minutes I'm seeing. We have found that the greatest learning experience is failure. And there is no experience like failure. And I would like to say that in my native tongue, there is a saying that is, I'll translate it, Theel kuritadu veilathu vadula, means something which has germinated in fire will never wilt in the hot sun. So if you have gone through the process of failure, it really strengthens you. It strengthens you in so many ways. Actually, I can narrate a personal example. We have this Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, which is one of our most successful vehicles of date. And the very first launch of this PSLV landed in failure. And that failure was due to a very, in hindsight, a very small mistake in the onboard software. At that time, we did not have this knowledge that the software has to be separately tested. So it was tested along with the hardware. We had many cases where failures were there in the simulations. But there was I'm talking of how many years back? I'm talking of 1993. At that time, our simulation setups themselves had a lot of limitations. So most of the failures were due to the simulation setup. One case was due to the software failure. But it went along with the other one. And in flight, always it happens that the worst possible scenario only will happen. So this particular case happened in flight. And that software bug which was sitting there got triggered. And instead of negative feedback, we got positive feedback. I'm a control engineer, so positive feedback tumbles a vehicle. And the mission was lost. Afterwards, I was working on that project. I was a very young engineer working on that project. Afterwards, we took out all the data. Then it was glaringly obvious. From that, we changed our strategy of evaluation, testing. We built up a whole institution to do this testing, software testing, test case definition, all that came from that. And the support which was given to us by the organization in that failure. Meticulous review, no, totally objective, no blame game, but everyone working together to find out what has gone wrong and rectifying it. Once you go through that, then you feel, okay, I can do my best. And if I fail due to something which is unforeseen, because we are always venturing into new domains, but we'll all work together and rectify it and go ahead. So this is something which I've seen, and it may not be probably very maybe unconventional to say that if you really have a spiritual core, you will always have a sense of proportion. Nothing is so bad that it affects your whole life. I'm seeing in the newspapers many instances where people are succumbing to pressure. That's why I'm saying there's nothing like that. If you, on a daily basis, you are in touch with yourself and you have some strength in yourself, anything can be overcome. So I just wanted to make that a point here. And the last thing also I would like to say that anyone who identifies himself or herself totally with the work that is being done, whether you are a man or a woman, there's no gender there at all. You continue to have energy generated internally, and job satisfaction, excelling in work, happiness in life, and recognition also. Recognition comes only as a byproduct. So this is something which we have experienced in life. So I thought I would just share with you. In fact, all the things which I have shared with you are something which in our journey through this space program, I have learned myself. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lalitambika. Madam, I wish to say one thing. I'm from the IT industry. We not only simulate, we put the data in, we test, and still fail in production. But ISRO, without an ability to test in a pre-production environment, is successful. Time and again is an immense presentation of the capabilities of our scientific brains in this organization, in this country of which you are one, and we are honored, madam, to have such a wonderful person as you here. May I now request Mr. Vijay Prasad. Is Mr. Vijay Prasad around? Yes. Mr. Vijay Prasad, he is ex-member of PMI board to felicitate Dr. Lalitambika. It's an honor, madam. Thank you very much, sir.